Blake, how many things have you done in your life that could actually kill you?
Toby, did I ever tell you about my camping trip in the Chattanooga Mountains?
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who is done listening to people say you don't need a trail to hike a mountain. And I'm here with my co-host who regularly hikes Mount Everest, Toby Walters.
I love when, because I don't see your, little cold openings in the outline. I just don't check. So I just enjoy being surprised. So I have never attempted to climb Mount Everest. I've read books about it. I've watched movies about it. And that just looks like something I have no interest in achieving in my life.
Why, Toby? Is it the images of all the dead carcasses that stay on Mount Everest forever?
At least they're frozen in time, It's kind of like running a marathon. Like I've seen people train and run for marathons, and I'm like, I have no interest in doing that either.
And they don't die at the end.
Well, some of them do.
Toby, goodness gracious.
So are you going to tell me about this camping trip, or you just hiked up a mountain with no trail?
I mean, if we just want to trade your intro story, we went into a mountain and Joel was like, it's totally a trail. It was not a trail. We're climbing up the side of this mountain, grabbing trees to get up there. We get to the very top and it's beautiful. It's looking out on the river, wrapping around an island, and we sleep on this giant rock. Well, the rock is jutting on the outside of the mountain. Like I'm on the edge of this mountain. There may have been some whiskey.
Yeah.
I definitely, at the end of that, was like, the Lord kept me from dying. We attach our Enos to the trees that are sticking outside of the mountain. In the middle of the night, I don't see the person in the Eno next to me. Mm-hmm. And we had met this dude, Mike. So it's just the three of us. And I go, let it be Mike. Don't let it be Joel. Let it be Mike. Don't let it be Joel. Because someone is obviously dead. They have fallen out of the Eno in the middle of the night. I look down. These two boys had snuggled up in the bottom one.
Wow.
I get out of my Eno at 5 a.m. just in my underwear. This is back in the day. And a photographer has showed up to photograph the mountain.
Yeah.
And Mike goes, Blake, I just met you yesterday. Elijah here just got here. Put some clothes on. I refused to wear any clothes because I had sweated so much hiking.
Wow.
You asked.
And unfortunately, you answered. That could be a slight segue into my story of self-integrating a church plant. So
those are very related.
I know. Were you in your 20s when you did that crazy hike?
I was.
Yes. And so I was as well, in my 20s when I decided to handle the integration project at this church plant we were launching. And so there weren't like the craziest things we did. Like I had worked for a small integrator, so I knew I could hang a few speakers like properly, and that
should be the tagline for your integration company.
I could run cables. I could, set things up, generally speaking. But it was when I called up my uncle. My uncle's an electrician, so I called him up and say, "Hey, Uncle Doug, can you remind me which color wire is hot and which one is not?"
This is who you want your integrator to be.
Like, Toby, what are you doing? And so he's like, stop everything you're doing and I will be there in an hour. I was like, oh, okay, Uncle Doug, I'll see you soon. And so he came out and he actually ran the electricity and did it properly. But, he might have saved me from death. He might not have. It might have been fine, Blake.
It'll be fine because someone will save Toby. He never, highlights that part. Someone saves him.
Yeah. And just like you should have had a machete going up a non-trail on the mountain to cut all that stuff up. I mean, that's how I was going to strip those wires to then.
You were really going to use a machete?
Well, you use like wire strippers, but this the same concept, something that cuts down stuff.
You got cable lube, wire strippers. I mean, we got to rename stuff better.
That's right.
My goodness. You know who I wouldn't rename? Who I wouldn't change? Is the production pastor at the Ark Church in Houston-ish, Chris Allgood. Chris from Houston-ish, welcome to the podcast, man.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for having me.
Poor Chris. Did you have any idea what you're getting yourself into? Did your team tell you about when they met me in person and the kind of nonsense we got up to?
No, sir. Not at all.
Okay.
They did not.
They're all getting fired after this.
Yep. Blake, do you ever meet those people and they...
team, so.
They have names that are either like, the same as a famous person or kind of like a funny cliche or something, like when we met Justin Firesheets for the first time. Mm-hmm. And so Chris Allgood, I always try and think of things that maybe that person has never heard before. Like, Chris, can you think of just a good, funny cliche about your last name? What
do people say to you?
Besides, it's all good. Yeah.
It's all good. And I hated it for years and years and years up until I got to high school, and one of my girlfriends wrote on the back of my truck, "It's all good." And I fell in love with it. And ever since then, I have absolutely loved it. So, in fact, I didn't wash it off. The rain finally took it off. It took a while, but I've since then embraced it. So it's all good. And people go, "How do you spell that?" Like, "It's all good." Oh, that's so cool. So.
Did you marry that girl?
It. I did not. I chased her for a while, and we're still really good friends. But I did not. But I did introduce her to her husband. So, there you go.
So it's all good for her, but
I mean,
Chris didn't win the girl there.
This would be such a good last name at work. Like, they ask you about your work, and you go, "My work, it's all good."
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. Have you heard any, creative ones lately where you're like, "Oh, I haven't heard that before. That was pretty good."
I have not recently. No, sir, I have not.
Man.
He says it's all bad.
Yeah.
Those.
So Blake, I'm going to need you to host this whole podcast, and I'm just going to workshop some stuff, and I'll have it ready by the end.
Toby, news alert. I've hosted every podcast since we've ever started this. Chris, you have the title to church. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I was trying
Come on, B host.
you know what? Nope, Toby. Now I'm throwing the ball back to you, A host. You asked the intro question.
Chris, back to somebody who actually knows how to use words. And ironically, I have half a mouth full of Novocaine. So this is me.
We should set that up. Yeah.
I had a tooth drilled this morning, and so I'm still very numb on the left side of my mouth.
Does it hurt?
No, it doesn't hurt at all. It just feels weird. And then try eating lunch with a half numb mouth. That was, quite interesting. But anyways, back to it's all good. Chris, you were the production pastor at the Ark Church, but I'm assuming that you weren't born into that role. Give us kind of a snapshot of your background in production. What's kind of your key moments that led up to your role today?
Well, certainly. So my grandfather was a pastor. My dad was a pastor. My uncle was a pastor. My sister's currently a missionary in Africa. Surprise. So I started with my dad when I was around 10 years old. We had one of our volunteers not show up, or the sound guy not show up. And he said, "Hey, can you run sound for me?" And I said, "Sure." And that's where it started. So I've blown up a lot of speakers. I've toasted a few soundboards. You're not supposed to let the magic smoke out of them during service. Kind of that progressed up until I was about 19, and I went to Managua, Nicaragua on a missions trip with...
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah. With Calvary Temple out of Irving, Texas. And met a guy there. His name was John Bretsky. And John was the sound guy for the church. And just had a great time. I loved it. And decided, you know what? I want to be a news photographer. And I wanted to be a news photographer for my entire life. I wanted to shoot video, and I wanted to run a live truck. That's what I wanted to do. And that didn't work out quite so well, but I did get a job during college at KXII in Sherman, Texas. Found out you can't make any money at it for the first 5 years. Decided to get married, called John. He offered me a job, and started designing and installing sound systems for churches and anybody else that would pay us. About a year into that job, left Liberty and went to work for a company called Freeman AV, or at that time it was AVW Telav. Now it's called Freeman AV. Very large rental company, pretty much in every major city. And I was a producing account executive, so I sold and produced anything from a 20-person event up to a 40,000-person event from one side of this country to the other. I worked for them for 9 years, traveled a lot, loved it. I absolutely loved the job. Then I did a show that I call the show from, if you'll pardon me, the show from hell, because that's what it was. It's the worst show of my entire life and the worst show of my entire career. First show I ever fired anybody off of. First show that I ever cried in front of my crew. The first show that I spent 60 hours awake. The first show I ever got cussed at by an ex-LA Lakers cheerleader. Yeah, it was a show. Do you want to hear that story? There's some.
I was going to say, should that be the disaster story at the end? Is this the tease?
Back to that.
Okay, this is a great tease. That will be the disaster story at the end,
or one of them.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I left the hotel Friday afternoon, took off Monday, thought, well, I'm gonna go in the office Tuesday. I'll be a few minutes late. Got in, and the director of operations for the branch was ready to write me up because I was 15 minutes late. And I'm like, nope, I'm done. I'm done. And I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and looked at my resumes. I had two. I had a church resume and I had a professional resume. Looked at church jobs, and there was this church out of Conroe called the Ark Church. Didn't know where Conroe was, had no clue where the church was. And thought, Lord, if this is of you, you've given me a skill set. You've given me talents and abilities that I've used for Freeman for 10 years. If there's something out there, make something happen. Sent my resume. 4 hours later, I got a phone call. And that was in August. Got hired in October, and I was here. I spent the entire month of December paid by Freeman, but working for the church. Yeah, just a really cool story there.
Yeah.
But that's how I got to the Ark.
And how long have you been at Ark now?
I've been here 16 years.
Okay. You are the OG then.
I've been here when Pastor asked around the room how many people in here the longest, I'm one of the original crew. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, Blake, I'm just kind of chuckling internally because he got written up for being 15 minutes late. Blake, you were so animate about being on time. It's kind of like is it your top pet peeve? Like, where does it rank in your pet peeves?
Between being on time and responding back, I'd say responding back maybe, but on time is right underneath that.
Yeah.
I'll write people off and never speak to them again if they're late a couple times.
And so you texted me earlier this morning and you said, okay, our pod is at 12:30. Make sure they're on time. And I'm here on time. And then I got a text from you at what, 12:20?
I thought this podcast was at 1:30 somehow, 2 hours later, and then I had to sprint over here from the factory.
And I'm totally going to write you up for that. Chris, we actually do write-ups at our company, but they're meant to specifically be joke write-ups. And so we'll be in all staff meeting. We'll just hand out pieces of paper and say, just write somebody up and then share it with the group. Blake, do you remember any specifically that you've been written up for?
Not that I have been written up, but I remember other people's. There was a lot of very lewd, NSFW ones. Then there was one, like, this is all in the spirit of good fun. We're burning each other, but it's funny, right? Then one girl goes, yeah, I'm writing up the whole tech team for never being on time, so then I don't have a key to get in to the building in the morning. Yeah. It was like awkwardly serious, like, oh, that's an actual problem.
Yep.
This is awkward.
They got burned there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Chris, you have the title of production pastor, and in the church production world, that is an extremely rare thing. I know, our buddy Dennis Choi, he's had that title, a few others. Talk to us kind of the difference between a production pastor and which most of our listeners would probably be a production director, a tech director.
Mm-hmm. So when I started, my title was technical director. And I don't report to the worship department. Worship is a separate department. So when I got hired, I reported to the media pastor. When the media pastor left, I'll be transparent and say I was kind of worried about what they were going to do with me in the department. So for about a month and a half, I didn't have a boss. I just kind of ran the department and did my own thing-ish. After Christmas Eve, our executive pastor came to me that year and said, hey, we would like for you to step up and be the technical director and oversee production. And I said, technical. It's a thing with me. I don't like to be called the production department or the technical department. It's the production department because there's so many technical issues in the world.
Yeah.
And so when technical can be so many things. So I have made a very staunch stand of like, this is the production department. We're not the technical department. Anyway, so if I get those mixed up, I apologize. And so I was like, great. My first thought was, I'm my own boss. Boy, that was not wise. Many years on, I'm learning through a lot of staff members, a lot of changes, a lot of people coming through the ministry, coming onto our staff, coming through my department. I'm learning a couple of things. One, there's a lot of really good guys out there. And I've been blessed with an amazing team. Some guys that I dearly, I truly have a great love for and a great deal of respect. And they're no longer with me, sadly, but they're still in the ministry. And watching these guys come through the ministry, it started me thinking, what do I do? I'm 49 years old. I'm one of the older production pastors probably in the industry. And I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? What's next for me? So I walked in our senior pastor's office about a year ago and sat down and said, what's next for me? I can't be the technical director forever. What's next? That's a dangerous question to ask. It really is. And our senior pastor is amazing. And he said, Chris, he said, the kingdom of God values loyalty and values age. The corporate world doesn't. But he said, I do. He said, God honors. He goes, what I need from you, he goes, I don't need you to be the whiz bang. I don't need you coming up with the next greatest thing. I don't need you, being the technical whiz. I need you to help me keep the department steady. I need you to help me keep our culture steady. Basically, in really kind of weird terms, keep the Ark steady. And so my job, and it came kind of out of the blue. He called me one day and said, hey, can we talk? And I went and saw him, and he said, hey, we're going to make a change to your title. And we walked through that. And here's what it's going to mean for you. Here's some things you're going to have to take care of. We're going to get you, licensed and ordained. We're going to take care of all that. And it's been an interesting road, because no longer am I don't know most of the stuff anymore. I built this building from a lot of respects. Everything in here has got my fingerprints on it. And anymore, I don't know this building very well, and I'm okay with that. I've got a good team of guys that tech it, know it, understand it, can fix it way better than me. And so my role as a production pastor is to steward this next generation of techs coming up underneath me, to teach them, pour into them leadership skills, and to help them understand what we do as tech people, and teach them what I can.
I love that. Blake, I'm sure you're hoping that the two things are loyalty and lack of age around here.
Why is that? Because I'm so young?
Well, because you're so young and you're very loyal. Like, that's kind of one of your personality traits.
I'm a golden retriever. What can I say?
Yeah. And then, Chris, I also laugh alongside you when you, elevated your position and then thought you didn't have a boss. That's cute.
I learned real fast that so let me back up a step. I report to the executive pastor, who then reports to the senior pastor. We all work for Pastor Allen in the church, but my direct report is our executive pastor, which is unique for churches a lot of times, where you report to a worship pastor or something like that. I report to the executive pastor.
Yeah, I think there's kind of an interesting dynamic, and I could be totally wrong, and I'm always willing to accept that, Blake. You know that about me.
Are you, though?
But, the higher you elevate, you think the less people you have to answer to, and it's almost the opposite. It's like, now as the sole owner of Church Gear, I actually answer to everybody in a sense, because everybody kind of, looks at and points at things they don't like.
It all trickles up.
Yeah, it all trickles up. I like that.
I've got an interesting story about that if you're interested in,
yes, please.
In answering to everybody. I was doing an event in Fort Worth at the convention center, and I had a young guy working for me. His name was Leonard. Leonard disappeared on me one day. He's gone for like 4 hours. I couldn't find him. Finally, I find him in a hallway, and I'm like, Leonard, buddy, where have you been? He's like, I had to go get a drink, man. I was bored, and I need to go get something to drink. I said, buddy, here's what I need from you. I need you to be here. I need you to be visible. That's what I need from you. He's like, man, I don't understand. Everything, you just come in here late, you sit in the office, you don't answer to anybody. I just don't get it, man. You just think you're the king around here. I said, Leonard, sit down. He sat down, and I said, let me explain something to you. I don't answer to pretty much anybody. You're right. I answer to everybody.
Yeah.
I answer to my boss. I answer to the VP for this branch. I answer for the $2 million of gear setting on this property. I answer to the truck drivers. I answer to the client. I answer to every speaker who walks in here. I answer to you because, remember, I got you this job for this week. I answer to everybody, buddy. So if you want to give me your radio and you want to go take my job, go for it. But before you think I don't answer to anyone, you need to understand I answer to everyone.
Yeah.
Change his tune real fast.
Yeah. hard lessons we all eventually learn. Hopefully we learn, because some of us never learn. Blake, you and I don't know that we learn very well.
Sorry, was I supposed to be listening to any of this?
Exactly.
I've clocked back in. I had to go get a drink with Leonard,
So, Chris, I look at the staff makeup of a church, and I used to be a worship pastor and I used to be a youth pastor, and there are logical, career paths for those roles. We often joke like youth pastor, put in your time and you'll grow up someday to become a real pastor.
Right.
But, tech people, production leaders, there isn't necessarily that same path in a church to grow into a role that eventually you feel like this is what God's called me to. This will provide for my family. How do you feel like churches can start to put, pathways in for production leaders to, elevate their role eventually?
Wow. Phenomenal question. And I'm not sure I have a great answer. I've seen a lot of different, I get to peer into a lot of different ministries around the area, and every church I've seen is different. Man, oh boy, that's a good one, because, and having thought about it, trying to figure out what it is, I'll be honest, I don't know. I know here at the Ark, we have such a different culture that path was provided by our senior pastor. I think it's just, you have to have a conversation with leadership and see where leadership is and where they're wanting to go.
Yeah.
And really, that was the conversation I had with Pastor Allen, which was, Pastor, I can't be the technical director forever. I know that.
Yeah.
But I also don't feel like God is done with me in this ministry. What's next for me? What's the next step? What's the next logical step can I take? And what that looks like for me in some respects is going to be more pastoral ministry. I've stepped out quite a bit of day-to-day operation of the technical department. I give that to Ben, who's our technical director. I oversee the department. I give insight. I oversee the budget. I approve things. But then on Sundays, I'm not really stuck anywhere. So I can be front of house if I want to, which is my first love. Front of house audio is what I enjoy doing the most. What's that?
Does your wife know that that's your first love?
Well, we won't tell her.
Okay.
So that's what I love to do.
Yeah.
But I have also found that we have something called a pastor on call. And pastor on call is someone who on Sundays is just available to deal with problems, issues, pray with people, give directions, can be anything. And so I have found I really enjoy that role. And so I've been given the freedom to be able to either run audio if I need to, oversee my department. I still do that on a Sunday morning. But I can also be out in the foyer. I can interface with people. I can shake hands. I can, hug people's necks, give them directions, pray with them. And I'm finding I really like that role. But to answer your question, I think it's just based on the ministry. You have to know your ministry. You have to know where your church is going, where they headed, what's the vision of the pastor or the executive pastor, and is that open to you? That's a hard one. I don't know.
Yeah. How would you advise, or do you advise, younger guys that come in and maybe they're amazing at mixing audio, maybe they're a great lighting director, and they have no leadership skills whatsoever, but they want to know, like, how can I, grow in my role here? How can I make more money? How can I become, how can I make six figures someday mixing audio? And they really have no desire to lead people, no skill set. How do you coach them? How do you pastor them to realize, what reality is going to look like if you don't want to lead people?
It's difficult. Recently had a young man, Devin Wiles, who is in Arizona. And Devin, when you hear this, I am so sorry. I don't know the name of your church because that's really bad of me. But Devin left me about a year ago. And I pushed a little bit. I tried to give him some leadership roles in some areas. And he was really pretty adamant about, Chris, I like doing audio and I just want to be audio. That's all I want to be. And I loved it about him. He was very honest. And it gave me, it allowed me to truly know how to lead him better instead of trying to push him in areas. I was able to focus in a different direction with him. If you want to make six figures, probably this be a conversation with the Lord, but you're probably in the wrong industry. Sadly, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, the church is not the place where you're going to do the skill set and not be able to lead people and then grow in your skill set. It's just not how the church is wired. Church is wired to make disciples.
Correct. Yeah.
Chris, if you were talking to a production person that said, man, I hear that Chris has pastor in his title. I really think that I do a lot of pastoral stuff. What advice would you give them on checking their own heart, though, before they go and ask for pastor to be in their title? Like, any advice you would give your past self on, hey, if you aspire to have pastor in your title as a production person, here's what you should be checking in your heart, or questions you should be asking yourself.
Are you called to it? Being the role of a pastor, I will tell you, it is not something I ever wanted. I watched my grandfather do it. I watched my dad do it. I watched my uncle do it. I spent 33 years in the Assemblies of God watching my family in that there. I never wanted to be Pastor Allgood. That was never something. If you'd have told me 16 years ago, Chris, in 16 years you're going to be a pastor, I'd have laughed at you and I'd have went, yeah, you're crazy. After it happened and I called my dad and I said, hey, I just want to tell you something happened today. He almost started crying. And I was like, this is not the way I wanted this to go. This is not what I was expecting. It's something you've got to be called to, because it is a different calling than technical. Loving on people, praying with people. I, by nature, am not a very caring, nurturing person. I really just don't care if your cat died.
Blake's a cat person.
Kylo, Daddy says hide Kylo.
Sorry, it's just not who I am. My wife, that's my wife's job. She knows everybody's business and what everybody's doing, and it's just not me. I've had to change some of that, and it has been the best thing for me. But I would say it needs to be a calling. It needs to be something that you ask God and say, Lord, is this what you would have me do? And have that confirmed, because it is definitely a calling to be a pastor.
And what are some of the logistical details that, if you want to step from production director to production pastor, like, this is the difference in what you're going to do in your day-to-day, these specific things?
I will tell you, we're still trying to figure that out. That's a hard one. We're trying to figure out what Ben does, what do I do, what do I not do, and what does he do? This will be my short take on it, is I try to do only what I can do. There are certain things, because I'm a staff pastor, but I also sit on the leadership team. And so with those two chairs that I sit in, we're working to figure out, okay, what only can I do? There's only certain things that I can do for the department and for the ministry as a whole. And so what Ben can do, I let Ben do. What Scott can do, I let him do. What Nathan can do, and I just take on things that only Chris can do in the chair that I sit in. I'm a culture coach, so I oversee the culture of not only my team, but this could get me in trouble, but I also oversee the culture of the Ark. And so one of the things I will take any staff member, aside from probably the executive pastor or the senior pastor, would be the culture of our church. And having done that multiple times with different staff members, but you violate our culture, we're going to sit down and talk about it, because it's viable to who we are, and what we have. So to answer your question, and I'm sorry if it's long-winded, but to answer your question would be, we're still figuring that out. It's been a process, very difficult for me, because there are days I sometimes go, I don't feel useful. I don't feel like I'm being useful. And that bugs me, because I'm a get it done, check it off, do a project. I'm that kind of guy. And I'm not now. And the checklists have gotten a lot smaller. I sit in a lot more meetings. I pray with a lot more people. It's just different.
Yeah.
So we're figuring it out. I'll be honest. We're just figuring out what this looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I relate to you so hard. My wife will text me at like 12:30 and she'll be like, how's your day? And I go, well, it depends. If I get this one thing done that I've been trying to get done all day, it'll be a great day. And if I don't, it'll be a trash day. I understand that feeling. I'm just so fascinated about the pastor title. I have one more question for you on it.
Sure.
If you were a pastor listening right now and you were resistant to be open to letting a tech be a production pastor, what would you say to them to consider? And I'm not trying to lean you either direction. Just what would you advise a pastor in another church as they're thinking about this?
There's more in, if you're looking at someone and you're trying to decide either or, there's a reason you're looking at that person and asking that question. And secondly, there's more in that person than you're currently seeing as a tech person. Don't get me wrong. I love tech people. I've been a tech guy since I was, 10 technically. And I love it. I've got tech stuff running through my veins. I love it. But there's more in me than just the guy who knows how to plug an HDMI cable in, figure out why the microphone's buzzing, and knows how to make a good mix. There's more in me. And so I have to tell you, when you walk into your senior pastor's office and say, what's next? Buddy, that's laying it out on the line. Because he could look at me and said, Chris, there is nothing more for you. We don't have a place for you. I put it on the line. And he saw more in me. My executive pastor saw more in me. And I appreciate that. And God put more in me than what I was using from a technical aspect. The good news is there's guys behind me and under that set on my team that have that skill set, have that technical ability that's beyond me. When I sit with these guys and we're talking through a problem, these guys come up with some of the best ideas, and I'm like, why couldn't I think of that? I mean, that's just such a great idea. I mean, we're doing kids camp this year or youth camp this year. I'm not even going. And for 14 years, it was all me. I planned it. I did it. I went. I teched it. I put it in. I took it out. Not this year. I'm not even going.
Yeah.
But how is he going to get pied in the face with cream, Toby?
How's he going to put all those marshmallows in his mouth and say, Toby Buddy?
It sounded like you were saying Toby Buddy instead of Chubby Buddy. Toby Buddy.
Well, Blake, did you have any more questions on the pastor title? Because you know what time it is.
Torture Toby time.
Nope. It is time to baffle Blake with bits of information about blessings, blunders, and boom mics bordering on buffoonery.
I'm going to have to lean my body forward into sport mode here.
All right, Blake, I'm super excited about our new segment, Baffle Blake.
Are you sure Torture Toby time is not on the table?
I kind of feel like the spirit of our entire podcast is to baffle Blake, but we've partnered with our friends at HouseRight to put this segment together where we, kind of try and fool you with some real or fake questions. Now,
I'm only here for the prizes. I hear there's a prize pack.
And what I love about HouseRight, they work almost exclusively with churches, and they'll work on new building projects or they'll renovate current rooms. And something they have a passion and a high skill level for is making sure that the room looks great, but also functionally speaking and acoustically speaking, works for the style of worship that your church is trying to perform and execute.
So it's the inverse of you and I. I don't look great, but I work great. You look great, but you don't work great.
100%. But HouseRight actually
can get
gets
you
both. And if you're not looking to do a production system or integration project, but you are looking for your next job,
don't tell anyone.
I know they are hiring as well. So go to houseright.com and investigate both these possibilities, because HouseRight is just an awesome group of human beings.
Yes, and I'm going to go work for them right now.
So, Chris, you're going to get inundated into a new segment that we're doing, brought to us by our friends at HouseRight Integration. And so we're going to play a little game, Chris. We're going to pitch you against Blake, and we have 5 crazy moments that may or may not have happened in church production. And so you guys have to decide, are they true or false?
And Toby, this is you and the AI coming up with it.
True or false, Blake? All right. Number 1, a church accidentally left a hot mic on during communion. Like, you know what a hot mic is? Just one that is on. The mic is hot. You get
I just figured it'd be like burn me when I touch it.
Yes. So the church accidentally left the mic on during communion, and the congregation heard the pastor whisper, "I hope they brought the good bread this time." Is that true or false, Chris?
I think it's true.
I'm going to say it's false because we all have these little paper thin crackers that we have now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that one was true because, some churches are a little more, what do you call it, Pastor Chris? Or like closer to the traditional Catholic.
Liturgical?
Liturgical.
Yeah,
Dang
more
it, I
traditional.
should have asked Pastor Blake. Sorry about that, Blake. All right,
boy.
Chris, you were up 1-0. Next, one live stream opened with a 10-minute close-up of the janitor vacuuming the sanctuary because the tech forgot to switch scenes.
I'll say that one's false.
Yeah, I'm going false too. There is no way.
Well, you two dummies,
Oh, no.
neither one of you get a point.
It's a way. They were watching the monitors.
It's true.
10 minutes? No way.
Somebody was not paying attention.
I believe it.
What, did Spencer go to sleep again?
It's possible. All right, next up. During an online baptism, the camera operator slipped and the camera went underwater too. Viewers got baptized by proxy. Chris, is that true or false?
I'm going to go true on that one.
I got to zig at some point to make up, so I'm going to say false.
Blake, you got that one. That
Yes.
one was invented by, my brain.
1-1. Is this our final one?
Wow.
No, we got two more.
Okay.
All right. One church's live stream was briefly taken over by a gaming streamer due to a shared Wi-Fi password.
I want that to be true so bad.
What are you going with there, Chris?
Oh, man. I'm going to say true.
I want it to be true. I'm going to say false.
That one never happened. Chris, you're losing to Blake.
I know, but two of these have actually happened at my church. So that's why I'm...
Which two,
kind of-
Chris? Which two?
So the first one was we had a pastor go to the bathroom, and we had his mic live through the broadcast stream. And I'm telling on my wife because my wife was the engineer mixing the broadcast stream.
So y'all heard his stream on the broadcast stream.
We did.
Was it a number 2?
No.
All right, well, that's good.
Yeah,
Yep.
much safer. All right, last one. Pastor Chris, do you want to pray about it before answering?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
A camera zoomed in on a congregant mid-prayer who was clearly asleep and snoring.
Oh,
Chris, true or false?
I'll say true.
I'll say false.
It's true.
Oh, so a tie.
And tie goes to the
Nice.
pastor.
Tie goes to the pastor. So, Chris, we have a HouseRight prize pack coming your way.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
And while, the listeners, you didn't get a HouseRight prize pack today, you do have the opportunity to work at HouseRight. So
That's
if you
the
want
true
to,
prize.
yes, I've been applying every day since we started this. So head over to houseright.com to apply. Or if you're looking for your next integration project, give them a look over at houseright.com.
Now, Chris, speaking of integration, I got to visit the Ark a couple months back, and your team was giving me the behind-the-scenes tour and pointing everything out. And when I asked, why was something done a certain way, and I said, who did that? And they said, well, we did. And I think I was specifically talking about the PA, like who hung the PA? And they said, we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you guys hung your own PA? And they said, yes, we integrate almost everything ourselves here at the Ark. And I was, now there are churches who have in-house integration teams, but it's very rare. Chris, talk to us about, your guys' approach there and how you keep things safe when every integrator on the planet would say, don't hang a PA yourself.
And are you a better an electrician than Toby?
Well, okay. So years ago, back to 2010, maybe 11, this is 2010, I was able to go to Church on the Move. I believe it was during one of their conferences.
Yeah, the Seeds
And-
Conference.
What's that?
The Seeds Conference? The worship
Seeds Conference.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And met Andrew Stone. And just sweetheart of a guy. One, probably the best engineer I have heard in a long time. And just didn't develop a close friendship with him, but we developed a distant friendship and really just enjoyed that friendship. But one of the things he said was when we were revamping this auditorium, I didn't want to treat this as a church. I wanted to treat it as a theater. I wanted to treat it as a venue. And not that he was trying to take church out of church, but he wanted the production side to function like a theater you go to in Houston or go to in Chicago. And I'm like, boy, that's an interesting way to do things. And ever since then, we've done things like I did it on the road. So we wanted to do everything we could in-house. From a standpoint of how do we do it, I had a really good team. The first guy I hired was a guy named Will Martin. Will Martin was my audio guy. He helped me build these incredible chandeliers for Christmas one year that we had these little battery-powered candles, had AA batteries in them. We took the batteries out and we wired them all together and put them on a dimmer channel, so that way that when you turn the dimmer channel on, these chandeliers would light up. And it was like 80 candles per chandelier, and we had 3 chandeliers. And I hired Will part-time for that. Will came on full-time with us probably 3 or 4 months later. And Will just had that attitude of, man, we can do it. Whatever it is, I can build it. We can weld it. We can hammer it. We'll figure it out. And we did. Then I hired a guy, and Will, one of the guys that came through, Will is now at Gateway in South Lake.
Yep.
Continuing ministry. Will's a dear friend.
I get to see Will in 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, Will's awesome.
Great
Love
guy.
Will to death. So the next guy that we hired in that kind of vein was a guy named Tyler Murgy, and Tyler works for a company called Skylark. But Tyler was the only guy that I've ever hired literally on the first phone call. So when I would, people would apply for jobs, I would pick up the phone, I'd just kind of shoot the breeze with them. And I literally hung the phone up and I called my executive pastor and said, we got to hire this guy. We got to hire this guy. We got to hire this guy. He's like, Chris, we haven't done any more interviews. I'm like, I know, we got to hire this guy. And we did. But Tyler brought such a love and a desire to just do things. So the reason we do it in-house is because I want to be able to tech everything we have. I do not want to be holding to Canon or Fujinon or Blackmagic or Yamaha or whoever. I want my team to know and understand every system that's in this building and how to tech it. Because when's it going to break? Sunday morning at about 8:30.
Yeah.
And we've got to know how to fix it. And so that's how we took on the role of being our own integrator to a certain extent. Now, there's certain things we don't do, but there's a lot of things we do.
Yeah.
He sounds like the pastor doo-doos when he's on the broadcast.
When the mic's not open.
Yeah. We're just a bunch of middle school boys here. You know, we hear doo-doo and we just start chuckling. It's kind of a thing. Chris, are you guys, certified in rigging? Like, how do you, or what specific things don't you do versus what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not certified in rigging, but I do have guys on call that I need. If we're going to be doing something that I'm questionable or is not right, we'll call somebody in to bless it to make sure that it's good.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the rigger's like, I didn't do it well. I just prayed over it.
Yeah. One of the things that you may have seen when you were here, if you look straight up in the back of our on the back of our stage, there was a bunch of steel that kind of runs from front to back. There's like 12 or 15 of these beams that run across there. We actually installed that and built it in-house, but we sat down with the architect of record for the building and got a certification on how to build it, what to build it with, and we did it.
Yeah.
We don't do big electrical. Okay, hold on. For the sake of this podcast, we don't do any electrical because we're not electricians.
Yeah. Do you know which wire is hot and which one's not?
And do you use a machete?
Absolutely. So we're in the process right now of going through a HouseRight retro. And this is not a small project. This is a major, it's a big deal. We've got over 400 amps of power going into our dimmer. And so I had to call an electrician in to go, okay, I don't know what I don't know. I need your help because I don't want to burn this building down.
Yeah.
So we don't do electrical. We don't do electrical.
Yeah. Have you had any
that I care to talk about?
Yeah. Have you had any specific moments where it was, a learning moment where you did something yourself and it didn't, or you maybe had to redo it, or you learned a hard lesson doing it that way?
Killing technicians. We went to hang a
What?
Well, almost. Haven't killed anybody yet. I had a tech, actually it was Will, cut through his finger. Tyler put a drill in his arm for about an inch deep. He put a drill bit right in his arm. He walked in my office, sat down, looked at me, and I'm like, "You okay?" He's like, "Nope." And we were putting our video walls in, probably 8 years ago. And we were pulling 8 runs of 3/0 or 2/0 electrical cable because we had to get it from one side of the electrical panel all the way like 200 feet to the other side. And we put a cable puller on it, and that cable puller had a 15,000 pound limit. It went from 0 to 15,000 pounds in about 4.5 seconds.
Whoa.
When that rope broke, about 60 foot of 2/0 cable times 8 came screaming out of a pipe. And luckily, my technician had stepped back away from the pipe, or we would have killed him. Whew. Yeah, I got a few stories like that. Had a tech turn around and walk out of a lift one day. Just turned, missed a step, fell flat out of the lift. Luckily, it was only about 15 feet off the ground, but he hit the ground really hard, fractured up a couple bones in his face. We almost killed a guy trying to pull a triangle truss structure up with a 1/4 ton motor instead of a 1/2 ton motor. It almost didn't make it. So we've learned a lot over the years of what not to do.
And I'm sure integrators are out there screaming, "This is why you don't do it yourself." But Blake, do you want to get an integration? Is this inspiring you?
If integration needs a sales guide to hang with people, yes. If they need any of this other stuff, no, I could not do it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you said PA, and the interesting part about the PA was we've got an older PA, and it's in a very weird configuration.
I noticed
and
that.
I knew that it would work. I was like, this will work in this configuration, but all the software renderings wouldn't work. It just didn't work. I called several integrators. They looked at it. Chris, you're crazy. It won't work. You can't do it. It's not going to work. It's not going to have coverage. And I got all these answers. I finally found one guy. He walked in the auditorium, and I said, "Here's what I want to do." He goes, "Yeah, we can do that." I went, "Perfect." He's still one of my volunteers to this day, but he works for an integration company.
Yeah.
And it's been working good. It's not ideal, but it's not bad.
It's like when Tom Cruise wanted to rock climb the Burj Khalifa Hotel in Dubai in one of the Mission Impossible movies. Do you remember that scene, Blake, where he's outside on the hotel and he's like 100 floors up?
I remember all Mission Impossible moments. Yes, I love that series.
Okay, so the first rigging guy told him, "No, we can't do that. It's unsafe." And then, he's doing an interview, and so they asked him, "Well, what'd you do?" And he said, "I got another rigging guy."
Gracious. Well, if you remember at the beginning of the podcast, Chris had to get another guy when he fired someone after a disaster. And I'd really like to hear that disaster story where, it sounded like you had your first person you fired, first 60-hour day. I mean,
Paula Abdul yelled at you, apparently.
Tell us this disaster.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that was back when I worked at Freeman. That was the catalyst for getting me to the Ark. And it was an event for a group. I won't name the name because they're still in business, but it was a group that taught, we'll say, computer skills. Just go with that. And the salesperson on the event, I was the production director, so I was coming in just to make sure the room functioned. Mm-hmm. Projectors worked, mic worked, graphics worked. That was my whole thing. Lighting, did it work?
So was this like
responsible to run it.
A big corporate event then?
It was. Okay. It was. But they had sold a 60 by 20 quad stacked screen that went across the top of the stage. Mm-hmm. It was massive.
Yeah.
The problem was the salesperson had told the client, "Oh, we're going to record this and we'll be able to put it on a DVD for you, and then you can send it to all of your franchisees." Yeah. So when I got to the room on Monday, there was nobody in the room. It was just me, one graphics person, and one of my art directors. On Tuesday, we had 2 full-time graphics guys working. On Wednesday afternoon, I had 5 full-time graphics people trying to produce all of the graphics for this show. If you're familiar with what a build is in PowerPoint, these PowerPoint decks could be somewhere between 100 and 200 slides long, and they could have somewhere between 40 to 60 builds per slide. No small task.
Yeah.
It was stupid. It was absolutely off the chart insane. The meeting person was an ex-LA Lakers cheerleader. The girl was from a physical, from a beauty standpoint, beautiful, just a jaw-dropping, beautiful young lady. But the girl could throw you under the bus faster than you could turn around. So we go through 2 days of rehearsals, 2 days, all these presentations. Get to the end of Wednesday, and the CEO turns around and goes, "Hey, who's got all those changes?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not doing it." They're like, "Well, you're the producer." I'm like, "No, I'm not. My job is to sit here and make sure this room functions. Technically, you didn't want to pay for a producer. You don't have one." So 2 days of rehearsals, the graphics department, the show started on Friday. The graphics department worked 24/7 for 2 days, not 24/7, for 24 hours a day for 2 days to get all the presentations corrected.
Wow.
I fired the projectionist. So the projectionist was this big no-name guy, big name guy out of Nashville. This guy had a resume. I mean, he had worked for Brooks and Dunn and Garth Brooks and Reba McEntire, and he had worked for all these guys. Vetted by our department, super nice guy. 2 days, he couldn't get these projectors to stack. Finally, on Tuesday night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I have a good friend of mine, still works for Freeman. His name's Glenn. I called Glenn. The first phone call I made is 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, "Hey, I might need some help." Glenn said, "Okay, call me. Let me know what you need. I'll call you back." 30 minutes later, I called him back and I said, "I need you, and I need you here now." He said, "I'm getting in the car. I'll be there in 45 minutes. Glenn was that type of guy. Me and Glenn had an amazing relationship where we would walk in a room. I'd say, "I've got video." He'd say, "I've got audio." And we just went our separate ways.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And projectionist, 1 o'clock in the morning, I went, "Hey, man, I need you to come down, come off the scaff." He comes and he's like, "Okay, man, I'm going to get it tomorrow. I'm sorry, man, I'm going to get this." I'm like, "Dude, you've been at this 2 days. This is not rocket science. I can converge projectors." Dude, seriously, you're done. "Oh, no, I'm coming back tomorrow." "No, you're not. You're not coming back. You're done." "Oh, man, I'm sorry." But that time, the CEO walks in the room at 1 o'clock in the morning and starts to absolutely curse me out. Up one side, down the other, because the projectors weren't done. We didn't have all these changes. And I just sat there and had to stand it. It was wild. At the same time, my event's going on, I had the C crew. So within the industry at that time, we had an A crew, a B crew, and a C crew. I had the C crew, which was fine. We could do it with a C crew. It wasn't no big deal. The A crew was in Frisco, Texas. This was at the Gaylord Texan. The A crew was in Frisco doing a big event for Freeman Corporate. So all the owner, the VPs, everybody's at this event in Frisco. So the A crew, my boss, all the corporate guys, everybody's in Frisco. On Wednesday morning, we swapped crews. I got every A-list guy that we could find. I got every knock guy that was at Freeman. I got my boss. I got my boss's boss. I got the 2 producers we had on staff. I got everybody. To tell you how bad that show was, the first time I've ever cried in front of my crew. I was so tired, I would literally sit down and go to sleep. I was awake for about 60 hours that I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was rough. And then after the fact, the presentations weren't right. This is where the meeting planner would sit down and they'd be doing a presentation and they'd play the wrong video and she'd start screaming, "I told you this is not the right video."
Wow.
And I'm like, we just went back there and we looked at all the graphics and you approved everything. You told us this was good. "I didn't tell you that was good. You guys are," I mean, I'm having PTSD just talking about it. And yeah, it was rough. It was a bad show, but at the end of the day, the show came off. We refunded them 100% of the show. And after that, the sales guy didn't get fired. How he didn't, I don't know. He actually got a promotion, and I'm not joking about that. They took all the camera ISOs. They spent 2 weeks recutting the show, camera for camera, minute for minute at the office to be able to hand this client something they give their. Yeah, it was, it was rough. It was rough. And I knew I was done at that point. I knew I couldn't continue down that road. And the Lord opened a door for me. And, okay, you got to hear that story. Have you got like 2 minutes and I can tell you that story?
Of course.
Yeah. We don't have jobs here, Chris. Why do you think we're hosting this podcast?
No worries. So what was really,
because it's true.
what was really cool about it when I came to the Ark, one of the things that, and this may speak to somebody, if you're in the corporate world and you're like, do I go to ministry? Or if you're in the ministry going, do I need to quit? I don't know. Either way you want to take it. Well, I applied for the job, and I'd come through Conroe a bunch. I'd passed the church a bunch going to Houston because I had a client where I did a lot of those shows in Houston. And I'd pass the church, and I'd look at it occasionally and be like, I'd like to work there one day. Didn't know what it was, and I didn't even know how to apply for it. It's kind of weird. So we start the interview process. I come down for several interviews. Everything's going really, really well. And my mother-in-law asked me a question. So Pastor Philip had offered me the job. And in that process, I said, hey, if I don't like it here, what's the severance package? Now, I'm not sure if you know how dumb that is to ask in an interview setting.
As the owner of a company, I do know how dumb that is.
But here's the genius in it. At that moment, Pastor Philip caught on to something I was doing. I was what-ifing God. I was, what if I don't sell my house? What if I don't like the job? What if we don't like the church? What if we can't find a home? What if my wife doesn't like it? What if we get homesick? What if?
Yeah.
And so Pastor Philip wrote me a letter, or we kind of got through everything, and we kind of agreed on salary and benefits and everything. And he said, I'm going to send you a letter tomorrow. It's going to outline everything, and we'll go from there. I said, sounds great. I was at this point doing an event in Fort Worth at the convention center. And so that was I believe that was on a Thursday, if I remember correctly. My days mixed up here. And so Thursday comes, Wednesday night we talked. I'm expecting this letter. Thursday morning comes, and nothing. I'm watching my email like a hawk. I'm looking for this letter because I'm excited. I'm ready to go. We're done. We're going to the Ark. We're going to do what God's called us to do. We're getting out of here. We're done. Nothing. Nothing. All day, nothing. Until about 4:30, I get an email. And I'm going to summarize the email because it's long, but the summary of it was, Chris, you're our candidate for this job, but you're what-ifing, and you're constantly what-ifing God. You need to know in your heart of hearts that this is where God has called you. Things are going to get tough. We're going to have some rough roads ahead, but you've got to know God has called you here. And if he hasn't, great. No harm, no foul. We'll count you a friend. We'll move on down the road. And I get this email, and I am livid. I'm so mad. I'm just livid. Why did I ask that question? Why did I bring this up? And he mentioned it. He's like, you mentioned your mother-in-law asked the question, but you ask it. Yeah, I did. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. Call my wife, and I'm like, are you ready to go? And she was like, I am. All right. Call my dad. Are you ready to go, Bo? I'm like, I think so. I don't know, Dad. He's like, all right. I get in my car, and I'm headed down 30 going between Fort Worth and Arlington, and I can take you to the spot that had happened. I'm mad. I'm kind of screaming at God. I'm crying. I'm upset. I mean, I look like a lunatic in my car.
It's just Toby on an average Tuesday.
But I can remember the spot where I truly feel that God said, are you going to trust me? Are you going to trust me? And I went from screaming and crying to crying, going, yeah, God, I'm going to trust you. Without unpacking this, because it's not necessary, but there was some stuff fixing to unpack in my family. There was some stuff fixing to come up that I needed to be separated from my family. There needed to be some physical distance. God was protecting me. Pastor was right. I called him and I said, I'm in. I'm 100% in. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And he's like, that's what we wanted to hear. I'll send your letter tomorrow. And there have been some tough times. There have been days I've walked out of this building mad at people, mad at God, mad at ministry, and said, I'm never walking back in that building. I'm never going back in that building. I hate this building. I don't want to be a part of this ministry. God, you're crazy. And then I sit down at the restaurant and I cry. God, I'm sorry. There have been some tough times. But my path to get here was one of a true calling from God. And it was tough. But I had to trust him. And I will tell you, my house didn't sell. Took us 5 years to sell my house.
Wow.
But that was timing, because if we had sold our house when we wanted to sell our house, we wouldn't have bought the house we're in today. Mm-hmm. And the house we're in today is so much better than the house we would have bought 5 years ago if we hadn't trusted God.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing for my family, for my wife, for my kids. It's been awesome.
16 years later, here you are, and you finally reached the pinnacle, Chris. You're on the Church Gear podcast.
At this moment, you can tell God,
yes,
my life has been all good.
Yes.
You know, if there's somebody out there and you're trying to figure out, do I leave? Do I go? Do I stay? I would say you need to get before God and ask him and trust him.
Yeah.
And then let God, and have a peace. The Bible says there will be a peace that surpasses all understanding. And I can tell you at that moment when I felt like God said, are you going to trust me? I had a peace in my heart that I could not explain. I just could not explain it.
Yeah.
Man.
Has it been perfect? No, it has not been perfect, but it has been, God has called me here. I'm committed to being here until God calls me somewhere else.
Yeah. I just love the idea of calling, and so many of our, wise guests have just come down to, it's about the calling. Are you called to be there? And it's going to be tough to stay in a church job, which you might be able to make more money out in the world. You might have, easier hours or easier role. And you might be thinking to yourself, maybe I should do that. And why would I stay at my church? It's because of your calling, because whether or not God's called you there. So, I just want to encourage our listeners to, to listen to that. There are plenty of things in this world that I don't think we worry too much as Christians about. Did God call me to go to this restaurant or that restaurant for lunch? It's, but if you're going to pour into and decide on a full-time ministry job, secure that calling, confirm that calling.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know what you mean, Toby. I throw lots before every restaurant decision. That is my tech takeaway, is to throw lots, which is a joke. But Chris, I bet you have a much better tech takeaway than that. What would be your advice to a room full of production people as a tech takeaway as we wrap our episode together? It's unfair to him because he just gave the most incredible takeaway of how to know if you're called to a church and how to handle all the tough times. And now we're asking him for another one. We're so
and you could wrap it all into calling if you want.
Yeah. We could totally just, go back to calling.
I would say trust God. That's where I would land. I wish I had some great pastoral thing to say here, and I don't have anything profound. It's not been roses. It's not been the easiest road at times.
Yeah.
This is a job at times. This is a ministry. We're called, God has called me here, but there's still people here, still got lives to live. There are days, this is a job for me, but this is ministry. And there are days I'm like, this is just work. But more days than not, this is ministry where I get to love on people, get to help people, bless people. What we say here is what we do here has eternal consequences. And so what I do here will last for eternity. That's not throwing shade at anybody else, because I've worked in the corporate world. I've worked in the business world. But what I get to do today for me will last for eternity. And I truly value that. And I value the staff we have here, and our senior pastor and our executive pastor are incredible individuals, and I love them dearly.
Man, Toby, it must be nice to work at a place that you love the people you work with. I don't know what that's like, but that sounds really like it's working really well for Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yep, maybe you can aspire to that. Maybe God will call you somewhere finally, Blake, where you're appreciated.
Maybe he'll get me to the Ark, I'd like to get on the Ark and get away from the flood.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, man, if you have anything you want to plug or point people towards, what would you, anywhere to point people?
I don't. I'm not the social media guy. My guys are all over. My guys are much younger, and they're always like, "You need to post this," and I'm like, "No, I just don't. I don't want to take the time." I get it. It's cool. I just don't. So no, I don't have anything. It's the arkchurch.com is where we are. I mean, if you ever want to come see us, anybody's always welcome. If you, one of the things I learned from Andrew Stone was be welcoming. When I left his church, he was so willing to walk me around and show me and answer any questions I had. I went to another church in the Metroplex. I will not name them because it was not a positive experience. And I basically got told the production team is too busy to deal with you. You need to go away, is essentially what they told me.
Yeah.
And I left there and I said, we're never going to be like that. So if there's any production director, technical director, production pastor, tech, and you just want to know who we are, what we do, you want to come by and see us, man, we will take time. We'll show you around. We'll answer questions. We do it probably about once a month. We'll have somebody here that'll come in and we just walk them around and answer questions, but anybody's welcome.
Love that.
All right, let's get our plane tickets, Toby, even though we don't like to fly.
Blake, I was there like a month ago.
And you didn't bring me?
No.
He said I was welcome.
No, not you.
You're terrible, Toby. Well, Chris, dude, we really appreciate
he's going to see Will next week. So
yeah.
Go tell Will I said hi.
I just want to put it out there that I invited Blake on that trip, and he said I'm too busy with marketing.
Look, we're not going to get too mad on this podcast. All right. Well, Chris, dude, we really appreciate you coming on, man. Your story was really inspiring, and I think this will be for a really good episode. I can already see the title. Pastor, Integrator, All Good?
Oh, I like it. I like it. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. I truly appreciate it. I'm very humbled that you would ask me to be a part. So thank you very much. I hope this speaks to someone out there.
Oh, I'm sure it will, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Okay, Blake, do you know what I learned on this episode?
A lot of things.
What I learned is that apparently I'm a former Lakers cheerleader because physically speaking, I am absolutely beautiful, but I will throw you under the bus in a second's notice, like you being late for this podcast.
And if you have someone in your life that you don't want to throw under the bus, what should you do for them?
Well, even if you do want to throw them under the bus, you might want to do it on social media. You might want to share it online, just like this episode.
Maybe they should share it and say, hey, I'd like for this person to get better. I'm nominating you to get better. So here's this podcast episode to listen to.
Yeah, and maybe I'll share some of my former Laker cheerleader moves on social